Hey, coach, this team has been so resilient this year, and you had so many guys come back, for that fifth year, that senior year. How much is that a correlating factor?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, it's kind of like Isaiah's goal line stand, I mean, there's guys that just they're not going to let things go, the wrong way. And I think there's only so much you can do, but when the plays are there for you to make and you're in that position, you came back for this, I mean, Devin Carter's contact catch on the goal line, great play, some of the plays you see guys straining to make and running over people to get to the football, jumping over people to get to the football. The speeches. Grant Gibson gave a great speech on the sideline 2 weeks ago when we were down 21-3 to the offense. I mean, it's just they're giving everything to go out the best that they can, and so yeah, it's as a staff, we feel completely driven to give everything we have to them.
Aaron.
Hey, Dave, I wanted to ask you about MJ. You talked about him running reps on air behind the guys in preseason while they ran the drills. He's had now a couple games to actually get game reps, and then he's had practice reps. Like he's been able to stack those one on top of the other. Was there something when you guys looked at the film that like this week you said, okay, that was another step forward? I mean, because he obviously got off to a good start against Virginia Tech as far as what he did in that game.
Yeah, I think just the way that we had no pre-snap penalties on offense in this game, that was the first time all year. And even though those don't really dictate the outcome of games, they make it easier to score when you don't have them. I think him just doing a good job with the O-line, communicating, when he was ready to start his cadence, you could see him back there trying to undress the defense with his, claps and fake claps and different things like that, his cadence. And I thought that was another step offensively. Throwing the ball on the run in this game, first time we've really done that with them. You saw him throw two deep out routes to Thayer on the run. Those are pretty big throws. So that showed, a little bit more maturation right there by him, doing a little bit more than we'd asked him to do before. I thought, finding the running back on a check down instead of just running and getting hit was something that he hasn't shown he can do. He went to the last element of a progression right there. And so those would be three things right there for you.
Just to follow up too, like how much of, when you've got a guy that's making gains and looks confident and brings energy, how much too is you're still like, okay, you still want to make sure you set him up in the right position to be successful, not just throw, okay, he can do more and more and more and then overload him.
Yeah, I think you still got to be careful. I mean, it's still a small sample, Aaron. It's, it's a game and a half. And so, we're excited about what he's doing, but, at the same time, I think setting him up is important. I mean, what does he do best? Where is he most confident? And be honest, it's no different than when you have a 3-year starter. You still want to do what the guy feels most confident with. And his volume of offense has grown in the last week and a half. And I'm sure it will continue to with little nuances, because it's still a game of reps. I mean, if we put in a new play, it might look like a good play on tape, but if he hasn't repped it 20 times, it's not going to be comfortable, and I think that's just because there's so many different looks you can get at quarterback every time you line up. So, you want to make sure every time you drop something in the bucket, it may seem like a single drop, but it fills up over time, and I'd rather run a play, that we can rep multiple times and let him know the answers and feel confident when something happens that I'm doing this. You saw in the game right there, we had a play in that we thought was going to be a really good play. And if they zero blitz, his answer would be throw the slant. And he didn't see the blitz coming. He got sacked, and that wasn't a breakdown in protection. They brought more than we had to block. And you got to know where your hot is, and I think if we would have ran that play 5 more times in practice, that probably wouldn't have happened, So you just got to be careful because there's a lot of good plays that you can run, but do you have the time to rep them enough where all the questions are answered for the quarterback mentally, and I think that's a balancing act that he and Coach Beck have to play, just to be confident that you're getting what you want out of it.
Corey. Dave, we saw obviously Devin Carter leave the game on Saturday night. Do you have a status update for him, first of all?
He's doing good. Yeah, he's much better. So he took a pretty hard shot, in the midsection, was having a hard time getting his air back. And so from what I know, again, I haven't had a staff meeting yet today. It's at 3:30, but from yesterday's report, everything was trending the right way.
And I also wanted to ask you, it's kind of a loaded question, but when you look at this senior class and all the guys that will potentially walk on Saturday and everything that they've done throughout this program, I mean, this dates back to the 2018 class in some cases. How important have they been for this program to not only get where it is now, but to be able to rebuild compared to what you had in that 2017 and 2018 season too?
Yeah, I mean, they've been a big part of all of it. The evolution of our culture, leadership, the growth of our staff with the players. I think, this culture that we have now, obviously as a head coach, you lead it, but these guys are the ones that water it every day too. They're the ones that help it grow and hold each other accountable. So all these guys that are walking are a part of the success we're having in a major way. And, I do look at it like I coach them, but honestly, we grow together. I'm a better coach because I have these guys to work with, and I think it's a really good two-way relationship. There's a lot of back and forth communication, and I know it's a group that not just me, our staff, these are guys that we're going to be friends with after football for a long time. Like, we've been through a lot together.
James?
Yeah, Dave, we don't know the status yet of Field Jakovic. Boston College started a redshirt freshman against Duke, had 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Just watching him, if he's the guy, I mean, just your thoughts on seeing him in action against Duke.
He threw the ball really well in that game. As you mentioned, he had some good pressure on him. He delivered, and it was an impressive performance against a team that's playing really well. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely caught your eye. In some ways, he's sparking them on offense. I mean, that's as good a performance they've had throwing the ball all year.
And I just wanted to follow up on your younger guys. Just in general, is it hard to get a really good look at your true freshmen early in the season if they're late enrollees, or just when you're in fall camp and you've got regulars getting looks? Because it feels like most years you'll see those guys earn reps later in the year as opposed to early on.
I think there's a couple things in play. One of it is, your depth. If you're coming into a room that's got 4 upperclassmen in it, it's going to be harder for you to play in your position regardless, and then the health factor of your group. Maybe it started where you were 5th and now there's 3 injuries and you're 3rd and you're going to play, so that changes the dynamic too. And then there's what you mentioned, how well do they know the system, whether it's the offense or the defense? Can they get out there and make the plays? Like Brandon Cleveland's a great example. He was not ready to play early in the year, and he's worked hard in the weight room. He's changed his body in a great way, and he's learned the defense. And then we had injuries, and he was ready, and I thought he did some good things in the weight game. There's some other guys, where I think like Michael Allen, just there's a lot of older guys in the room, and then we've had what we've had, with Demi being in and out to give him some opportunities, and he's taken advantage of them. Same thing with Terrell Timmons. He didn't know the offense as well, but he was showing up, and then all of a sudden you have an injury to Anthony Smith, and now there's needs, and what can he do? All right, well, let's get him caught up, and now he's caught up and he can play, so I think there's multiple things there, and you'd love to redshirt everybody, but that's not the real, to me, if you want to win every game that you can play, you got to get your best guys out there. And sometimes injury dictates when guys are needed the most.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Brian?
Yeah, Dave, along those lines, when did you feel like MJ was ready? And do you think in hindsight, you could have pushed him even a little bit earlier?
Well, we talked about it in training camp. I mean, you knew that the things that MJ does well, he's a good passer. Okay. He and Jack can run, Jack has a lot of game experience, as you guys know. And so really conversation is if Devin's out for a quarter or 2 quarters, then, Jack knows what to do. He can go in and get us out of a game like you saw in the Florida State game. But if we knew it was going to be a long period of time, that MJ may take the job just because he's a better passer. And so we thought that could be how it played out. And that's what you saw happen over time. It wasn't anything that Jack couldn't do, or wasn't doing. It's just what MJ was doing a little better, was throwing the ball and more accurate with it.
Have you been at all surprised with anything you've seen from him here in the last 6 quarters?
I think it's more just, how he carries himself, his poise, his humility, how he treats his teammates, how he talks to the media, like all the things that you can't practice that with guys, like how are you going to respond after a comeback win? Like that's not something I can practice. Like you got to see him do it. And so, actually very proud of him for that. Thankful to his parents, because obviously he's the way he is because of their leadership in the home. And just, I think that's the biggest thing for anyone out there that's having success, is just to stay grounded and remember where you got to where you're at and why, and not get caught up in the hoopla of it. It's hard to do. And so I've been proud of him for that.
Aaron.
Dave, you did talk about mobility with him. It seems like you do have more of a run part of your quarterback right now, compared to maybe with Devin, as far as mobility, something you can call a designed run. How much does that change what you guys are able to do offensively, being able to probe with him a little bit on the ground?
Yeah. And some of the runs are him running scrambles, so I think there's a little bit more than people understand, but the design piece is completely different, than we had with Devin. There's a few goal line runs we had with Devin. You guys saw those early in the year, and they were successful for him as well. But the read part of what we do, RPOs, when you're either handing it or throwing it, we still have that stuff, but now we can also do are you throwing a screen, or are you throwing a quick route, or are you reading an end or a backer and keeping it? So just additional things that help move the offense, and not too many of them, because obviously you want to take care of them too. So, I think that's where we got to be smart, is when we need them and when we don't, and how to protect him, and for him, how to protect himself, but also do what we need to do to win, and I think there's a balance there. And we got to be smart with it, and MJ's got to be smart with it, but anyone that has that mobile quarterback, NFL down, I mean, it's different on defense defending that. You can't drop 8 in coverage and feel like, hey, we're going to cover them all, and he's just going to stand there. Like, no, he's going to run for 10 yards if you do that. We're going to read your end, and based on what he does, we're going to have one less defender. So it's 11 on 11 football, in more ways than one. And just like we have to deal with that on defense here, now they have to deal with that with our offense. And I do think that's an advantage at times, to have that mobility. And just as an offense in general, it's not really installing a lot of new things. It's, if we're running counter to the tailback and then we run counter to the quarterback, it's nothing different for anyone but one person. So the O-line doesn't know who's got the ball, right? So, you can motion your tailback out, you can use them as a blocker or whatever, and +1 it in the running game, or get them to -1 in the box, all those things. So the volume of your offense on a play calling sheet might increase, but from a knowledge standpoint for your guys, it doesn't change. And that's the thing that's nice, as you look at how they're defending you.
Do we have any other questions for Coach?
Yeah, actually, I got one more. Dave, a big picture question. I was curious, when you saw the Clemson score against Notre Dame, the league, that seems like it would put the league in potentially some uphill climb of making the playoff, but yet it also comes at a time when I would say the ACC seems to be better regarded than it has been. You guys have been a fixture in the poll, North Carolina, Wake, and Syracuse. Kind of how do you reconcile that the ACC might be on the outside looking in on the playoff, but yet there's still a fair amount of ranked teams and quality that we've seen this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think almost every year one loss team makes it to the finals. You know, it seems like Clemson's still a one loss team. You know, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. I think these next 4 weeks are going to be huge in college football. I mean, this weekend was pretty crazy with what happened to several teams. You know, and the injury piece of it all. I know Oklahoma State went from being undefeated to losing 2 in a row because they lost both their quarterbacks. You know, so. I think you have to do that at your job, Aaron. I understand, like figure out who's going to win the national championship in week 8. But I think there's just a lot of football left, and I don't think the ACC's out of it yet. I don't. I think there's a lot that can happen, and if any of these undefeated teams have the same type of situation that we've had or Oklahoma State has, and they're trying to figure it out without their starter, then their season could change, and now all of a sudden a one-loss team moves up again. So. There's a lot of football still to be played.
James.
Yeah, Dave, we don't talk a lot about the O-line play just individually. Looking at the PFF grades, I think Grant and Chandler are among the best in their position in the ACC. Can you just evaluate what you've seen from those two guys? I know they'll both be walking this weekend.
Yeah, no, they're both playing really good for us, James. Grant Gibson's playing the best football he's played. I'm super happy for him. He's playing aggressive, a lot of finished blocks, pancakes, playing fast, having fun. It's been fun to see Chandler out there, and we're different when he's in. He's definitely a strong guy on the left side there, and he's having fun. His smile is contagious. Just a really, really good guy. And, it's nice having that. You've heard me say this many times. I think you build a football team inside out, and when you have a good center and you have a good nose guard, that's a good start for both sides of the ball, and then you work out to the next spot. And Chandler and Gibby are playing at a high level. I mean, Tim McKay's playing at a high level, very physical right now. And it's been good for us to get Spees back. I mean, he played the first half of the season with a sore groin, and to have him healthy has been a great thing, to get him going. The O-line played one of their better games. Really, the last 2 games, I think they've played really good football for us and been playing against some good fronts. So it's good to see.